Not long ago, I was having lunch with Daniel. Daniel had always dreamed of owning a property that would generate income for him, but around the time he bought his first investment property, he'd only just started his job and wasn't sure if he actually earned enough income to make it possible. It wasn't until he discovered the idea of cash flow positive property, he realized the dream of owning a property could become a reality. The more he researched it, the more it made sense. It's possible to buy a property that covers all the expenses, the mortgage repayments, and even end up with money left over. This is called cash flow positive property. It's where the rental income is more than the property expenses. The other part that Daniel really liked, it didn't matter if the property market crashed 40% or boom. In any market, every month, the tenant will pay for your mortgage, rates, insurance, and all other costs, meaning that Daniel could own a property that cost him nothing to hold. He spent months researching the property market all across Australia, trying to find a way to make it happen. And after a lot of searching, he finally found the perfect property, a small house in Callista. The property itself was in great shape, newly renovated, and in an area that was growing and thriving. So Daniel knew it'd be a good investment. Now, almost a year on, Daniel's investment strategy has paid off. The rent that's coming in every month is able to cover all of his expenses, and he's making a clear $196 per month, even with rising interest rates. The interesting thing is the area he bought in and the property he bought weren't completely unique. There are opportunities like this across Australia. Daniel has found the exact criteria that successful property investors have used to identify high cash flow properties, and with his permission, I'm going to share these tactics with you today. Before I share this process, why don't you share some love by liking and subscribing to this video? It really helps us grow the channel. We appreciate all the support. What is a high cash flow property? A high cash flow property is a real estate investment that generates a significant amount of positive cash flow each month after accounting for all expenses like mortgage repayments, rates, insurance, and maintenance costs. Put another way, it makes you profit every month. Why are high cash flow properties a good investment? This video is obviously general advice only. As a mortgage broker, we can help you with the structuring and the setup of your loan. But if you're looking for specific tax advice, then you need to speak to an accountant. There are plenty of real estate investment strategies, but this is the only one that will generate passive income for you. Other property investment strategies include buy and hold, also known as negative gearing, renovate and sell, also known as a reno flip, and property development. All of these other strategies rely on spending money to get a big payoff in the longer term. With the buy and hold strategy, your costs will usually be higher than your income. You'll be negatively geared, which means that you're losing money in the short term, potentially every month, in the hopes that property value will increase over time. If you're doing the reno flip, then you're looking at splashing a bunch of cash to improve a property. If you do it right, you can increase the value of the property and sell it for a good return. But it can easily go wrong and waste a bunch of your time and money, so be wary of that one. Property development is the most complicated strategy of all. You're looking for a pretty big outlay of cash and a lot of potential risk. How do you find high cash flow property? First thing you want to do is shortlist the location. Some people prefer to invest locally so they manage the property themselves and save some money on management fees. If you are planning on getting a property manager, which we definitely recommend, then you can be more flexible with location and potentially get a better investment. So how do you find these potential markets? As a part of this process, we're going to identify property markets that have good potential for generating high cash flow. There are three things that you're going to want to look for to identify these. First is rental yield. Rental yield is a measure of the amount of rental income you can expect to receive from a property relative to its value. Basically, the higher the yield, the more cash flow you can expect. Vacancy rate is the percentage of all properties in that given that are vacant at any one given time. The lower the vacancy rate, the better. You're not going to make money from an empty property, so you want to buy a place that's full of rental demand. Rental growth looks at the 12-month trend of rental prices in the area. High growth means that you can expect higher cash flow in the future. There are a bunch of online tools you can use to find properties that rank well in these metrics. I'm going to show you how to use one of them a bit later in the video, and this will give you a short list of potential markets. The next step in the process is doing your due diligence. Once you've got a short list, the next thing you want to do is your due diligence. Due diligence takes a bit of a deep dive into the chosen market to make sure it's got the right attributes. With his permission, let's go through Daniel's example. He had a budget of up to $600,000 and was happy to purchase anywhere in Australia. And 12 months later, he's got a property that's generating him $196 a month. That's also gone up by 10%. He's gained equity and cash flow. It's a win-win. How did he do it? First, he looked through a bunch of potential markets. There are lots of online tools you can use to research property data like this. For example, SQM Research, realestate.com.au, Domain. But today, we're going to use a tool called DSR Data. It's a paid tool, but it's really useful because it collects all the data you need inside one place. Now, I don't have the original data from last year, so let's go through the same process using the current data today.
What we're looking at here is the DSR Data Market Matcher. And so with the Market Matcher, we can select by state or by map area. In this case, we're going to go pretty wide. So we'll say like we're looking at all the states and territories in Australia, and we're happy to invest in either houses or units. What we're looking for here is just a high cash flow strategy. So both are fine. What I've selected here is just some search criteria to filter the markets to look for ones that are likely to be interesting for us in terms of the hotspots. So we've got the demand to supply ratio. It just is a general indicator of supply and demand, and the statistical reliability is also based on how much data they have. We've got a budget here of 400,000 to 600,000. So that'll limit properties to where the typical value is that. And because we're looking for a good yield, But anything from 4.6% upwards is what we're trying to find, because the more yield in a high cash flow strategy, the better. And we've also got the display and sorting criteria, which just shows us some information and includes statistics that we spoke about earlier in the video. So what I'll do here is I'll click on matching markets, and it's given us a list of all these potential areas. So this is the first stage of finding your property hotspot for investment. As you can see, there is quite a few to go through. This will become our short list, and then what we want to do is go through these in a little more detail to find ones that are the ideal places for investment.
If you are using DSR data, there's a really cool thing they do. They actually provide a single score for a location based on your investment strategy. So once we export the data to a spreadsheet, we can sort it by high cash flow rating. And Calista is the top area based on the budget and our investment strategy. And this is where the rest of your due diligence starts. First, we take a look at the demand to supply ratio. At 53, it's a bit below the Australian average, but still pretty decent. And demand has decreased since the end of 2021, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, since we've seen a lot of downturn in demand in many markets in Australia since the start of this year. The typical budget of property here is $404,200, which is well within our budget. And there haven't been any wild increase in price. That's been consistent over time. There's also a higher percentage of renters in the market. This could be a bit of an issue because it could mean there's lots of rental properties available, but the vacancy rate is 0.14%, which means there are very few empty properties. This is a major plus for a high cash flow strategy, as every week that your property sits vacant is going to cost you money. There's also a very low average vendor discount and an average of 31 days on market, which means the sellers are finding buyers fairly quickly and as a sign of a pretty healthy market. Percentage of rent growth is also really good at 29.6%, and it's been a consistent increase since mid-2020. Overall, this suburb looks like a great opportunity to buy a high-yielding investment property with good cash flow. That's step one of your due diligence done. Next, let's have a look at the long-term prospects for the area to make sure this investment will continue to perform. Through some Googling, I've found that Calista is part of the city of Inanna. So I've headed over to their local government page for some digging. I found the strategic community plan. It looks like there's some healthy population growth, which could be a good sign for future demand. Next, I'd check for looming oversupply. If there are any big developments in the pipeline, this could cause an increase in the supply of homes and reduce my rental returns. So there are 3 new estates in the works. With a bit more digging, I found a housing site that showed that there were 13,000 homes in 2016. Judging by the expected population growth and the number of households in the overall area, I'm not really worried about supply. As a big plus is also the Kwinana SIA development, which is one of WA's most important heavy industrial precincts. That means there's plenty of employment opportunities, which makes investing here an even better prospect. Overall, we've confirmed that Calista is a good suburb to invest in. The next step is to find a property to buy. First, you can go to realestate.com.au and start searching for suitable property. Here's one we found. It looks pretty good, but let's have a look at the figures add up. Looking at the rent section on realestate.com.au, there are similar properties renting for $410 to $450 a week. Median rent in the area is $412 a week. So now we want to quickly run the numbers. We can calculate these manually, or you can use this cash flow calculator. We put these into the calculator and get a total of purchase costs of $119,035. Now we look at the income and expenses. The loan amount is $250,000. We use the standard variable rate for interest-only loans at the moment, which is around 5.5%. Property was also recently built. We could look at depreciation, but since it was built in 1968, depreciation doesn't factor in. So overall, the weekly cash flow is $49. And that's using current interest rates. 12 months ago, it was even better. Once we've identified this as a property with positive cash flow, the next step is to inspect the property and see what it's like. Property is all about markets within markets. So the more you can get to understand these different areas and suburbs, the better you're going to be equipped to finding positive cash flow properties like Daniel did. At Hunter Galloway, we're mortgage brokers. We help home buyers across Australia with buying homes and investment properties. If you want to know your borrowing capacity or if you can buy an investment property next year, then hit us up. We'd love to help at huntergalloway.com.au. Until next time, see you guys.